Bashar sort of sees that phrase as being a little bit backwards when we say survival of consciousness, because
Okay.
it implies that physical reality is the main level of consciousness, and it's not. It's the secondary one. The non-physical level of consciousness is our true state. Being in spirit is our natural state. It's the physical reality that is the exception. It's the physical reality that is the secondary level, the projection of consciousness, the dream, if you will, that we're having while we are still in spirit. So, from his point of view, we never actually leave the spirit realm because he says that's our natural state. We are dreaming that we've left.
Right now on Higher Journeys with Alexis Brooks. So I had a massive tragedy with a dear friend of mine, best friend,
Oh,
whose daughter, out of the blue, committed suicide.
okay. Yeah, that's always a challenge. Sorry about that.
I had just seen her 3 months before. I won't go into all of the details. It has just still been surreal. No sign whatsoever. And there is no doubt a wave of young people. She was 27. And I've been doing a little looking into this, and there is clearly an exodus, it seems, of this age group that's checking out of here.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know if how comfortable you feel going into that, to maybe
Well,
tease what we're.
it's not an uncomfortable subject, but I definitely do see patterns of people who, well, there's so many facets to it.
Okay.
On one hand, they're obviously not being given the information they need to know how self-empowered they are to
Mhm.
make, more positive choices rather than taking themselves out. And on the other hand, it could be all the soul signed up for. So, going back into their natural state, going back into spirit, could be a way also of ensuring that the people that are still physically left behind will try to make connections to them in spirit. And that will stretch those people's senses to be going a little bit beyond their physical concerns, going beyond the day to day ideas of physical reality, so that they expand their consciousness by reaching out to those loved ones that have gone on to spirit because of the connection that they have. So, a lot of people leaving, going back into spirit, could be a lure to stretch us into awakening to the fact that they're not lost, they're not gone, they're still here with us, and that the drive to feel that connection again can open up a new understanding of how we are all spiritual beings and help us make those connections a little bit more strong in physical reality. So there are many reasons why that may be happening.
We're going to keep this going because you just gave such an eloquent possibility. So let me just say, hi, journeyers. We're here. Darryl and I just chatted it up as we usually do. We're talking about a very serious subject, and I am sharing with, just shared with Darryl, and I will share with you the impetus for my wanting to touch on this idea of suicide and why it seems that it's so prevalent right now amongst a certain age group. On the heels of my recently losing a dear friend's daughter to suicide at the age of 27. Darryl, thank you for that. This is something that I'd like to just maybe give a teaser on, talk about a little bit in terms of what Bashar has to say, sort of universally, about what is considered to be the afterlife and survival of consciousness at large. So maybe we'll talk
Right.
about that.
Right. Well, Bashar sort of sees that phrase as being a little bit backwards when we say survival of consciousness, because
Okay.
it implies that physical reality is the main level of consciousness, and it's not. It's the secondary one. So, from his perspective, and why he titled the talk he's going to be given as All Roads Lead Home, is that the non physical level of consciousness is our true state. Being in spirit is our natural state. It's the physical reality that is the exception. It's the physical reality that is the secondary level, the projection of consciousness, the dream, if you will, that we're having while we are still in spirit. So from his point of view, we never actually leave the spirit realm, because he says that's our natural state. We are dreaming that we've left. We're pretending that we've left. We're taking a portion of our consciousness and we're creating this projection, this imposition of certain limitations upon it, so we can have an experience of process and change and new discovery. It's like forgetting who we are so we can remember who we are, but from a new point of view, discover ourselves anew. And that's what allows creation to expand and to grow. It's not that the structure of existence ever changes, but our relationship to it, our perception of it, and our experience of it is constantly changing. And physical reality is one of the devices that our spirit uses to create the ability to discover something new. But from, again, Bashar's perspective, this is the secondary level. So it's not that our consciousness survives physical reality. Physical reality exists as a secondary level within our greater consciousness. Consciousness, the greater level, the non-physical level, is where we are all the time.
All the time.
We're just going back to it. We're waking up from this dream and waking up back into spirit.
This is a very holographic sort of framework
Yes.
that I've resonated with ever since I delved into Talbot's work of the holographic universe. And it also makes me wonder, in terms of, we spend how much time in sleep per year,
Right.
whatever. What's happening there? Are we perhaps traveling back to that state?
Yes, reconnecting, re-energizing, because see, that's what he's saying is like, anything real doesn't deteriorate. The fact that physical reality deteriorates means it's not real. It has to be maintained by us. And therefore we sleep to reconnect to our natural selves, our spirit selves, have encounters, have exchanges, have understandings, teachings, and learnings there. But we're also using it to re-energize so that we can wake up and maintain the illusion of physical reality, which takes energy to do because it's not our natural state. So mostly sleep is for the idea of reconnecting, re-energizing our batteries, so to speak, so that we can perpetuate this illusion of physical reality, because it has to be maintained, because it's not real. That's why it disintegrates. That's why it dissolves. But non-physical reality is forever. It doesn't deteriorate.
Nothing that is real deteriorates.
Right.
So simple and so profound, but such a tethering that we have to this physical avatar. We're hearing that term a lot more lately as well, avatar.
Sure.
With the assumption, really just supporting what you're saying or what Bashar has said.
Yeah, because, again, we do this for a reason. We do it with a purpose, but it's temporary. It's not our natural state. It's a temporary experience. The experience is real, but the state of being itself is an illusion, is a projection.
As I'm listening to you, I'm getting, I'm processing all of this, not just intellectually, but trying to feel into it. And I got a couple of little, I don't know what you would call them, almost like not kind of an out of body experience. Like it's a little weird. I don't know how to
Yeah, you
explain
get
it.
expanded for a moment. You go beyond. See, that's what I'm saying. It's like when people die, I know that from the linear point of view, we perceive it as the soul leaving the body. That's just the way we perceive it from within space-time. But what's actually happening is our consciousness is just expanding beyond the physical, because it's not that our soul is in our body. Our body is in our soul. And so when we expand our view beyond the physical idea, we go back to our natural selves and realize that the physical reality is something within us. It's a dream we're having.
Let's say that again. The soul is not in our physical body. Our physical body is within our soul.
Right. And therefore, when you die, all you're doing is expanding your awareness back to your fuller self, and the physical experience remains as an experience that you can call upon. I guess maybe a simplistic analogy would be like, think of yourself as you used to be as a child. You're not a child anymore. You've expanded beyond it, but you still retain the experience you had as a child. You can remember it. You can call upon it. You can learn from it. But you're not a child anymore. You've expanded beyond it. So the child is still within you as an experience. But now as an adult, you're something bigger. You're something more. So it's similar in that sense. The spirit is like the adult version of us, and we're the child within. The physical mind is the child within.
Mm-hmm. How about the out-of-body experience? Because again, I'm going back to what I don't know whether that was that or I
Yeah,
don't know.
same thing. You're expanding beyond the physical limitations that you imposed on yourself, temporarily expanding into your non-physical self. Now, the astral realm might be a lower vibration of it. It's not fully waking up into spirit, remembering who you are as a spirit. It's still something that is closer to the earth, the physical vibration, but it still allows you the fluidity to move around a little bit more expansively than we do within the space-time construct we've created to represent physical reality. So there are degrees of this, there are levels of the expansion, and the astral realm might be still very close as a vibration to the physical limitations we've imposed upon our consciousness. It's not the full spirit, but it's still more fluid. It's still less physical.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense. Do you have OBEs?
Not in the way that typically people represent that idea. Again, I do have experiences I call dream experiences, some of which do have that quality of being in a different place and time for real somehow, and bringing that back with me as an experience. But I don't have them in the classical sense, not yet. There have been a couple of very brief moments where I've experienced it in the way that people classically represent it, where suddenly I'm somewhere else. I'm not in my body and I'm somewhere else. And then I come back. But I don't typically, at least not at this point in my life, have what people typically refer to as the lucid, controllable astral projection or out-of-body experience.
Or self-initiated even. Yeah,
that's just not the way I seem to operate at this particular point.
Well, I think you've got enough vested in doing your own sort of traveling when you're getting out of the way to do Bashar. That, in a sense, is an out-of-body experience. Well,
sort of.
I don't want to put words in your mouth, but
it's different. It's different. It's a connection. It's a telepathic connection that is different and allows me to perceive things in a very different way. I would not call it a classical out-of-body experience.
Have you ever? Well, let's, if I may, let's go into that just a little bit of going into that. Let's do this. Sorry, because there's something else I want to bring up. Again, going into the state, you're getting ready to channel Bashar. I want to talk about the movement a little bit and the sound that you emit as you're getting into that state. What is happening there where you're making that transition?
My breathing changes automatically because it's allowing more oxygen into the system to support the extra energy coming through.
Okay.
Which Bashar has said is important. My body is aligning. The chakra systems are aligning. My energy is aligning. My vibration is raising to become something a little bit more similar to his. We're locking in our frequencies, sort of harmonizing in the frequencies. And that's what I've learned to do from this side. And then he is changing his frequency to be something a little bit closer to mine. And then what you get is kind of, since you were speaking about avatars, you get a third representation. What you experience when Bashar is talking to you is not me and it's not him. It's a blending of the two. It's a third personality that represents his thoughts, because he's not speaking, he's just thinking. It's just a telepathic connection. And the information, when he answers a question, comes through in that third identity whole. All of a sudden, the entire piece of information is there. But then it takes time for it to unspool in our language, because I'm acting as a translation device for his thoughts because of the language that I was raised to understand. So it simply automatically draws upon the vocabulary in my mind to explain the concept that is there as a whole thing in a split second. But it's happening in this third personality that is representative of him and representative of the channeling state I'm in, but it is neither me nor him. It's something different. And because he said, if you were to experience him directly, it would be a very different experience, because you're experiencing a fraction of his personality in that third simulation or simulacrum or avatar that is representative of the channeling state, to allow his thoughts to come through and communicate to us in the language that I was programmed with, so to speak.
That's a great illustration for us, Darryl. Really, really great. Creating sort of this third blending of the two, and sort of a merging and an agreement to
Right.
be able to bring this information out the way it comes out. Wow.
Right, because it's a mix of his personality and my personality and a lot of other things, and it creates a third identity that you're actually speaking with when you're speaking with him in a channeling state. It's not me, it's not him, it's a third identity.
A third identity. And what I find interesting is I've listened to other channelers in that state, including Jane Roberts, frankly. You're probably the only individual, one of the only individuals that I know that does not take on sort of a Germanic or European sort of dialect. You kind of, it's not you, and it's very neutral. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's
I
no.
do, although some people have described, see, that's what's weird, is a lot of people have said, well, what's with the accent?
I don't
And
really hear one.
some people have identified it as either it's Irish or Scottish or something, and it's not an accent in the classic sense. What I think what happens is his energy emphasizes certain concepts in a certain way. My brain interprets that emphasis, that energy emphasis, in a certain way, and it sometimes comes out sounding like an accent or an inflection in language, but it's not an accent because of culture. It's an accent because of energy emphasis on certain concepts that just happens to some people's ears to sound like a familiar accent on our planet. And it may also have to do with some, cultural input in my personality, because I am half Irish. So yeah, so it may be drawing upon that, or accidentally pulling from some of that. It's a very odd mix of things. So it's not a typical accent, but some people have heard it as an accent that seems European or something else.
See, I wouldn't say so. I would say it has an affected, there's an affectedness in parts of your, the dialogue, but I agree with how I resonate with the way you're explaining it, actually, more.
It's just an emphasis that causes it to sound odd. And, one of the odd things I've found is, people sometimes, we've transcribed a lot of, things that Bashar has said. And one time it was put in the form of poetry. It was kind of broken up more in a poetic way. And for some reason, it was easier to understand him by reading it as if it was a poem. So it's a very interesting kind of thing about the way the energy comes through me, and the way he he speaks through me. It seems to be actually more understandable if it's almost spread out, transcribed as poetry stanzas. It's a very interesting phenomenon. It's very odd.
Speaking of writing out, is there a book? I'm getting a little feedback on your side, but anyway, we're winding down. So, book, you haven't done a lot of written material. I know that there's one book that's on my shelf from years ago. Anything in the offing here?
Yes, there are 2 books that will be coming out, I think, this year or next year.
Oh, fantastic!
So we have accelerated Bashar Communications, the company that is the company responsible for distributing Bashar information and holding the events, has accelerated its program of getting more written material out. So I do believe that there will be 2 books coming out in the near future.
That's fantastic. Oh, we'll talk about that more offline. That's great. Good stuff, Darryl Anka. Okay, once again, we got a couple of things going on. We're going to wind down. I'm going to let you go. You still have the majority of your day to enjoy, and I'm going to go make dinner in a minute. We've got Bashar everywhere, and Darryl, and your wisdom is equally important. So again, thank
Oh,
you.
thanks.
I
Thank you
appreciate
very
you.
much. I appreciate doing this. Thank you very much.